Hey, folks, before we get started today, I just wanted to say A, I love you. And B, if you could leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, it would mean the world to us. It helps us be heard by more listeners like yourself. Okay, let's go. Hello, all you beautiful people. Welcome to the Film Nuts Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor D. Adams. I'm really excited about today's episode because we're finally talking about a documentary. Some of my favorite films happen to be documentaries, and with my background in creating documentary content, I was especially excited about today's discussion. While some docs might be about controversial subjects or have a social or political agenda, there are some that are refreshingly straightforward biographies. Very Ralph is one of those movies, chronicling the rise and impact of fashion designer Ralph Lauren. It's educational and inspiring, and a favorite of today's guest. Rashad Little is a media entrepreneur, community organizer, and founder of Candid Yams, a social events organization featuring film, music, and food in the Durham, North Carolina area. We talk about the style icon's journey, self belief and its relationship with self doubt, and the impact shared experiences can have within our communities and families. We also show love for our mutual friend and collaborator, Crystal Taylor. Hey, Crystal, love you. So put on something comfortable and take a listen. Here's Rashad Little talking about Very Ralph on the Film Nuts podcast. It's good to meet you, man.
Good to meet you too, man.
Yeah, I feel like we've got some friends in common, but we haven't actually met. So it's nice to
Yeah,
actually meet somebody new.
for sure.
So talk to me a little bit about the Candid Yams kickback. I never had the pleasure to attend one of them, but just for our listeners, kind of go into what that actually is and how you think it fits into why you're on the podcast today.
So, Candy Escape Back for me has started just like this. It started it with this just passion for film and music, first of all. So when I first started, it was called Music and Movies, and I literally did it to have a grown perspective to hanging out with people. So what ended up happening, I graduated college and I missed having a conversation on the yard with my friends. And it was one of those like weird moments where you graduate, and you're like trying to assimilate into adulthood, and you're trying to figure out like, well, shoot, do I get new friends, or how do I move this and move this way and that way. So I created this kickback to connect with people and to network at first because I really wanted to, I just really wanted to vibe out with people, but I didn't know how to do that other than going down to the local bar, going to, you know, the baseball game on Friday night or something like that, which really wasn't like a networking and or like a connecting type piece. It was just like, hey, what's up, type of thing. And so I wanted to create this environment for people where they could come in, enjoy music and movies, and those are the two things that kind of bond people together anyway. So I created a kickback for that, and it's just kind of birthed into this film, and has a very pointed view of what I want people to experience when they come to Candid.
So how did COVID impact that for you guys?
To be honest, I've always been online, but instead of having kickbacks face to face, I just literally did them in these sorts of platforms on a Zoom, on a Facebook. I've had some outdoor events where we've been socially distanced. So it really has like a lot of businesses turned it to a way where when the world opens back up, you'll be able to use both. So you're either online or offline, having a face-to-face event, or having both. You can play with both of those because you know how that's going to operate now.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures from some of the outdoor events you guys did out at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park. How did those kind of socially distanced outdoor, um, pretty chill movie going vibes? How was that received in the community?
I think it was received pretty good. I think people were thirsting for, again, having a timeout, connecting with people. And so basically you came in, you had a pod where you laid your blanket. And so, it was a kickback in terms of people being able to kind of lay it out, go and get their food from the food truck, have a beer, so on and so forth, and be able to enjoy the movie with their family and friends. So I thought that was really impactful for the community that was kind of starving for something new, something fresh, because we'd all, kind of been in our own silos before that. So
Awesome. And you got any future plans to kind of get that going again with the weather getting nicer out?
Absolutely. Me and Crystal talked the other day about bringing it back to Durham Bulls Park. So, of course, this is an invite to everyone listening, and or that will listen to this, that you should come on out because we have a lot of good films lined up. Durham Bulls Park is really a great community partner. I think we'll be able to do some great things when the weather opens back up. But we are looking to do that here in the next couple of months. Yes. So,
Awesome. I'm excited. I'll try to make it out this time, definitely to one of them. Because yeah, I miss the theater so much.
yeah. Yeah.
um, so you want when we reached out, we started talking about what kind of movie you wanted to talk about for your appearance on this podcast. Um, you suggested a documentary called Very Ralph, which I hadn't heard of. So I always like seeing new things. And I always appreciate someone who wants to talk about a documentary because not a lot of times we take that into account when someone's like, hey, what's a movie or a show you really want to talk about? So
Right.
both of those are very refreshing.
Right.
But I want to know why you wanted to talk about this movie.
Well, it's ironic when I talk about love of film. I was a drama minor as well, so like when I talk about love of film, I literally talk about what are the things and the jewels in movies that could help us, kind of theorize about, what we want to actually be in life. And so it's much deeper to me than just going to go see a film. Like, how can we see ourselves in this film, or what can we see in this film to kind of add to our big life movie, right? Because everybody's walking around with this picture of who they want to be or who they are already in their mind. And so I'm always looking at different material, looking at documentaries or film in general to see how I can literally curate for my audience what they want to be and ask questions about who they want to be in life. And so that's the biggest thing for me. And so when I chose Very Ralph, what stuck out to me is this man from New York that we hear about. We've all most people that I know have a Ralph Lauren shirt or whatever have you, and no, and
Yeah.
never think twice about the man behind it all. And I just always think that this is very interesting how people use dreams in their mind to create brands and to create things that movies in their mind that other people fall in line with, and it's a very aesthetic type of thing. I'm one of those people that like to feel and see the colors and things. And so for my people out there that like authentic things, that want to wear it and feel it and touch it and all this sort of stuff, that documentary definitely pointed out some great things for me. So
That's really interesting because actually, in the movie itself, they talk about how Ralph Lauren was pretty much inspired by movies to kind of like do what he wanted to do. And he, there are multiple interviews in the thing where people are like, if he wasn't in fashion, he would probably be a filmmaker or something
right,
like that. So I
right,
thought that was really cool just to see how he took inspiration from one form of medium and just
right.
moved it over to another.
Well, he
Um,
talks about the clip that you're talking about. He's talking about Fred Astaire and how Fred
mhm,
Astaire was kind of dancing around. But you see what I'm saying? He picked up the jewel in the movie itself, that those ties were kind of wide, and it
mhm.
started his whole vision as to what he wanted to do. Because not a lot of people knew that he started out just selling ties at first.
I knew how to do the ties, but I didn't stop from there. I just kept going. What am I going to wear with the ties? We're going to make a shirt, going to make a suit. I found the suit maker, make the shirt maker. All of a sudden, they're buying the ties. They're loving the ties. What else you make, Ralph? I have shirts.
And he really wanted them handcrafted and handmade and sold in a specific way. And so that's how he kind of started his journey. And so that's what film can do for you. Because once you get it in your mind's eye, right? Once your eyes see something, it's almost impossible for you to forget.
Yeah. What originally drew you to watch this movie?
Well, like I said again, I've always been an enthusiast of Ralph Lauren and the Ralph Lauren brand. But one particular thing that I can mention is my mom used to buy me the GQ magazines and stuff like that all the time.
Mhm,
And one time he had a picture of his Ralph Lauren store. And as you know in the film now, he decorates his stores in the way that the Ralph Lauren brand is presented in a very unique way.
mhm,
But the picture itself was of a very lush and plush boutique in the corner of a busy street. I think it was in Chicago, and it was very beautiful. It had, like excuse me, brown leather couches and brown leather chairs. It was very vintage type of look. I'm a vintage type of guy.
Mhm.
But so when I seen this documentary about his life, I was like, literally, I need to find out why someone is able to create such a majestic feel to just a picture that I saw of how he set up one of his stores in Chicago. And so that's what immediately drew me to it.
What were your thoughts while watching it? Like, were you kind of pointing out things you didn't know, or was it more of just realizing more of a deeper meaning and like realizing how this guy was kind of like making his dreams happen? And also, while that was happening, did your thoughts change or shift after the movie was over?
I think my thoughts shift and change all all the time while I'm watching film, because as I'm on this journey to build Candid and do the things that I want to do, I've always wanted it to be a boutique feel when people come in because I don't sell like thousands of tickets. I really want it to be like a intimate space
Mhm.
that I create for people, and so one, I went into it thinking about that sort of thing, how I can recreate that component. But I'm also a student of history as well. I always want to know the origin of things. How
Right.
did they come to be? What were they thinking about? What things do I relate to this movie for me, the person that's creating this experience for people? How do I then relate, and how can I take things from that film and help me, utilize and put it into my brand and get my crowd going about authenticity and vintage and history and all this sort of stuff. So,
It sounds to me that a lot of just any movie going experience for you can also be enjoyed like as like a community moment. Um,
absolutely.
where does that come from for you? Like, was there something that you were inspired by young, or was there something missing growing up that you wanted to engage in as you like got to college and got older?
Well, yes. So it started out for me very young. My dad and my mom, kind of split and had we went our separate ways or whatever have you. So at that point in time, the very origin of all of this was the fact that we lived on a very busy block with a lot of different types of families. And we had Indian people and Chinese people and people from Pakistan and all these different things. And they all had kids, right?
And
And we all
I'm sorry, where did you grow up?
I grew up in High Point, North Carolina.
Okay, got it.
So on my block, there were a lot of different ethnicities and all this sort of stuff, right? So what I would do is I would literally go to their houses and have dinner with them. And my thought process was like, I want to see what their food tastes like. I want to see what their culture is all about. Because the only culture that I knew was, Southern, soul food, so on and so forth, which is great, right? My mom is from San Antonio originally, and her family is half Mexican and black. Her mom was Mexican, her dad was black,
Hmm.
coming from San Antonio. So I used to eat enchiladas and tacos and all this sort of stuff
Right.
and grew up on that sort of food. So I was very familiar with that sort of thing. So I guess my mom was kind of the start of all of this. But then I would go out and eat at other people's homes and kind of see how they, did their culture and all this sort of stuff. And so it became like a routine for me to do so. And then I didn't use it at all. I just, it's just like me going over to eat at your house because we're friends. I was just going over there just to eat and chill and kick it with your family or whatever have you. But then later on in life, after college, this is where this kicked back in, where I was like, man, I want to have that experience once again because I had gone to a barbecue in DC and that happened once again. Like we all converged in DC and everybody was coming. We had a great cookout and all that sort of stuff. So that enjoyable time with food and drink and party music and all this sort of stuff, as well as me being a kid, just going to other cultures and enjoying all of that stuff. I wanted to recreate that in my Candy Yams experience again. And so that's how this whole experience kind of came about.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that I really enjoyed. Like once I started to delve more into like an appreciation of film and
Yep.
art and music and all that, like it was the most of the enjoyment for me was coming from engaging in those conversations, sometimes debating in those conversations with people around me, um, which is just awesome. That's a really cool story, man.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, and also going back to this movie, the fact that Ralph was inspired by things around him
Mhm.
in order to create what he did create, and the fact that this is a movie. Uh, what do you think this documentary specifically says about the influence of film?
Man, I think that for a filmmaker, if he's watching this, right, um, you have to get used to following what your inner being is, right? And so for people and film itself, when you're creating film, they usually start with scripts, right? And with from those scripts, people are writing their actual feelings, their emotions, how they feel about different things, their vision for stuff. It's very interconnected in how you develop a story, right?
Mhm,
Everybody has a story. We're all going someplace and we are all coming from someplace,
mhm,
right? So in film, you have to be able to bleed onto that film what you want to, want people to see, but also what your personal vision is for that. So for me, that's what this film does and or speaks to in terms of film. You cannot make a good film or any project without being authentic to
mhm.
me. You really need to be invested in the story. You need to be invested in what people will get from the story, and you have to be very lock and step with that sort of process in order for anything to be good.
Was there something about this documentary, or maybe Ralph as a person slash character individually, that inspired you when watching it? Because I know you talk about how you recognized a lot of things and appreciate a lot of things, but there something in the moment that maybe inspired you to do something or shift your thinking, or did it um, emphasize an already existing way of thinking for you?
I think it emphasized an already existing way of thinking for me. But the one thing that did stick out to me was this: is that it's possible. It's possible. I mean, like if you take a dream, something crazy that you think that you thought like in your mind was like, maybe this may not be, possible. But the two things that I learned is that through straight up a dream and then telling people about your dream and wanting to and just walking that path and accepting whatever kind of comes with that path, that's what you kind of learn from this. It's a wonderful like and it's a wonderful like, um I guess it's just a wonderful story in one man having a vision for what he wanted in life, and because he had that vision, he literally took that in and made other people believe,
Mm.
right,
Yeah.
about what he wanted to do, and it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm telling you this is what I want, and this is what I need, da da da, da, that, and the third." No, people once people believe that you believe, people really don't get in on your idea until they like, "Oh, he actually believes this," and then that belief kinda creates their belief in you, and then people will start bringing things to you so on and so forth. Just like, Ralph Lauren creating ties led to shirts, led to suits, and then led to doing the whole Great Gatsby cast.
He was doing very flamboyant shirtings and these wide lapel suits. And so it was news. And I was a journalist, so of course I wrote about him because it was fantastic. He had done this linen belted back suit. No one was doing wrinkled, unconstructed suits. You can picture guys in the 30s. And I immediately thought of Gatsby.
You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I'm sure that people believed in him along that way. So if there's one thing, it's the fact that it's possible, right? But it's only possible if you believe in what you want to do, henceforth creating the dream itself.
Have you been a person that has always kind of believed that? Do you think you've ever gotten to a point where there's any kind of self-doubt in what you're doing? And how did you ever get out of a rut like that? Because I was watching this, and personally, I'm man, I'm full of self-doubt. Like it's crazy. Like I'll go up and down. One day I'm like, yeah, I'm awesome, I'm doing great. The next day I'm like, what am I doing? But watching this, a- any kind of obstacle that was documented that might have been in his way, I think the documentary covered it in like 30 seconds.
Right.
Like
Because
it was over.
dang, you good, man. You good. So like I think you're right, man. I think the part about him, what about that part when he was selling more product and he actually had income coming in and he needed to be bailed out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the reason why it's covered in 30 seconds is because those minute parts in life that we got kind of go through are literally like this small and the dream is this big. You see what I'm
Mm,
saying?
mhm.
So for me, that's probably what I resonated with most in that particular case. So but in terms of dreams, I heard this the other day. Ed Milet, I listened to him a lot. he was talking about he was talking about basically that doubt comes with every, like, people believe that just because you're like, you get it, you have your dream, you know what you're going to do, so on and so forth, that everything just, it's going to magically work out. He said that is the absolute difference in people that have made it and have not made it, in the sense is that people that make it, just because you have the dream, it's going to be hard. It may be sometimes harder than not doing anything sometimes to make that dream happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you literally, like, if we said, hey man, we want to, I don't know, build a building downtown or whatever have you. It sounds great, right? And we
Mhm.
may even, your father might have had been a construction worker and all this sort of stuff. He knows how to build a building, but going through the contracts and actually going through the actual process itself to get that to happen is much harder than objects are closer than they appear, right? In
Yeah.
terms of, that sort of wave of thinking. So whenever people are dreaming, if you're listening to this, um, you gotta accept the doubt that comes along with it. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Every single day, it's like it's like a break in a pedal. It's like a break in a pedal. Well, I wanna break, I wanna pedal, I wanna break, I wanna pedal
Mhm.
type of thing. But doubt comes with the journey. And it's just like, once you start making your, I guess, mindset actionable, it will then not make any sense for you to waste time thinking about doubt. If that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and what's funny to me is that if you Googled, like, quotes about doubt, you're gonna get, like, the gambit of, like,
Yes.
pro and con, all this other stuff. Um, and I think for a lot of people, it's probably, like, a personal struggle and a personal journey to try and figure out what doubt might mean to them, and I think for me, because like I said before, like, sometimes I feel like I have more doubt than is healthy for me. But watching this, that's the one thing I noticed. And while I found this documentary very like educational and
Yep.
inspirational, like I was looking for some kind of struggle. And like the couple struggles that he went through, like that, like I said, they covered in less than a minute. And I'm like, man, this guy, like for whatever reason, but the way the film presented it was like this guy was not stopping. Like he wasn't going to let anything get in his way. But at the same time, it presented him as someone who wasn't like cutthroat ambitious. Like he was just
Right.
this guy who knew what he wanted and
Right.
was going to get there
Yep.
by bringing along people that also believed in him, which I'm like, man, that's cool.
Man, and you know what's crazy? And I'll send you a picture of this when we get off this interview. But I had this one event, and I had this like, you know how you're so busy setting up an event that you're just not even really thinking about, like, the impact sometimes that you have on people, whatever
Yeah.
have you. But I showed this film inside this shop owner's shop. And I told people this is what I wanted, what could, because what I do with Candy Yams is I literally set it up inside of a small business owner's shop if they have one.
Okay.
So it invites customers into the space that they may or may not regularly market to, but it also gives the owner a chance to meet people that they regularly might not have marketed to, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, it's just interesting thing. So I had the event, and the two guest speakers that I had, we were talking about marriage and how to make it in marriage and all this sort of stuff, right? Which is a very important tool in our economy or whatever have you. But what I realized while the two people were talking is that they both had been married and divorced before, but they both were remarried as well, right? And so they were talking about their stories, and a lot of their stories parallel one another, why they got married, the thoughts that they were thinking when this happened, why they chose their partner, why they fell out of love with their partner, why it's okay to fall out of love, and if you guys want to go your separate ways, whatever have you. And I just remember sitting there thinking, like, man, if you grew up with a mom and dad in your house, right? And or you have grandparents that have been together for 60 plus years or whatever have you, you don't know any other truth outside of that. And I just remember thinking, like, as that event ended and as I'm looking back at the pictures and all this sort of stuff, I was like, wow, I wonder if that was a really big lesson for people that want to get married or have been married before, or have never gotten married, whether or not they think that, what kind of hope that bestowed upon them, because these two people were able to share their stories. So you're only two or three people away from actually living the type of life that you actually want to live. but you just got to start asking. You got to ask those questions to the people that have either already been there or yeah, the people that have already been there and they don't mind sharing their story with you, which is the exciting piece, which is the real gem in Candy Yams.
Hmm. That's awesome, man. So I know you said that you kind of been like an admirer or appreciator of uh, Ralph Lauren, Polo,
Mhm.
all that, everything he's made. Is there anything you took from this movie that you can apply to the brand that maybe you didn't know or appreciate about before you started watching this? Like how long? I mean, I'm not, I'm not like a, I'm not a fan of a label. Like I
Right.
don't like one over the other or anything like that. But I know people are. Are
Yeah.
you that kind of person? And did this kind of affect it?
Well, I think, back in the day when polo was a thing,
Hmm.
right? I think that, I was, I liked polo in that particular way. But even now, like if you go and get a really quality polo shirt, right? I'm in love with how it makes my skin feel, right? The material that it's made from, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
That's really the reason why I like Ralph Lauren's brand because you can find things that or that you're not going to be able to wash one time and it just tears to shreds, right?
Hmm.
Or or like that the colors that they pick. If it's like a really deep blue, navy blue, it's a really pretty color. It's appealing to the eyes, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, that is what I get out of the brand of polo. They make it with quality. They make it with that sort of thing. So for me, that's the reason why I like the brand. They could have not even put a polo label on the shirt. But once I felt it and put it on my body, now I'm like, oh man, this is kind of nice.
Hmm.
So I'm going back to your question. So you said, your question was, did I pick up anything that
Yeah,
I
was there something that added to maybe your already existing appreciation of Ralph Lauren as a designer or Polo as a brand?
I think for me, just the power of working with a team as
Mm,
well. And because a lot of times as a small business owner you're stuck in this vision or whatever have you, but to me when I saw that he had that writer write about him in the 60s, right, and
mhm.
now she's a part of polo and she works with him every day, I was like, yo. And then they were talking about you remember when he was developing the ties
Mhm.
and the wives mentioned that her mother would sew the labels on the ties, and his
Yeah,
dad would come up with color cards for the ties, so on and so forth. She
yeah.
said it was a real, like, family type business. I was
Mhm.
like, "That is what I want right
Mm,
there. That is what I want, to be able to incorporate your family into a vision and a story that you created, that helps everyone, right? Live their story or live within your story or whatever have you." So,
mhm.
that is the thing that I think I took away from it the most.
At the beginning, Ralph would have the fashion show in his office, which was a living room with a fireplace, and we'd have folding chairs. Ralph would stand in front of the fireplace. He would talk about the clothes, so it was very informal. And he had Persian rugs and velvet sofas. And the showrooms were what would have been bedrooms. Didn't look like anybody else's showroom because it was somebody's apartment. He just loved the idea of this homey place.
That's a good jumping off point because one of the things that the documentary uh, uh, kept bringing up again over and over again was the fact that this guy was super family oriented, and which is good, obviously, but I think it went back to me like wanting more conflict in this thing. But it's a documentary. Like you can't tell somebody like your life doesn't have enough conflict. But it was just it was so refreshing because I guess if you know, you would put him in the category of celebrity. And if you're looking at a biography of a celebrity, there's some kind of conflict or problem in there. And
Right.
they brought it up where, and he brought it up too, where, his friends like in the design world would like invite him to go out and do stuff. And there was probably like, they were probably drinking and staying up late, maybe doing drugs. And this guy was like, no, I'm just going to go home and hang out with my family. Like those are his two
Facts.
things. So not only did he
Facts.
have a family oriented business, but if when he wasn't at his family oriented business, he was with his family. Um,
Right.
do you think, or are you kind of in the camp with me? Like that's like refreshing to see, or you kind of
Yes.
are the people out there like it's like cheesy? I know some people were like
Well,
that.
the incredible part about this is that when COVID started, that's all you had at the end of the day anyway. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's like, yo,
Whoever
I
you're
mean,
living with, that you're stuck
right.
with them.
You in there. We in here now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, it's interesting, man. But like before COVID hit, I was always busy doing different things, so on and so forth. But one of the greatest moments for me is me being here, sitting with my mom one day at her house, and I had breakfast with her. We just had coffee and breakfast, and I couldn't remember the last time I was able to do that, right?
Mm,
Or
right.
because or had the excuse not to do it, right? Because I'm always busy, I'm always running, mom, I don't have time, da 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 da, right? But if you haven't learned anything from COVID since last March, is that the people that you had to get close to, the people that you had to reach out and say, hey, come in a little bit closer, so on and so forth. That was the awesome part about it, and I think that it's done. COVID has been bad for a lot of people, but the
Yeah.
one thing it has done for us all is make us think about family, if not like be close to our family during these times, to know that you're loved and that you're protected and that you're safe and all that sort of stuff, which is what family is all about at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
so with this particular family just reminded me of that, that little ranch that he was on and had his houses and stuff like that or whatever. But at the end of the day, if I think it's safe to say, because you've seen the film, seen the documentary now, that even if he didn't have all of that stuff, he still would just be wanting to design and ride horseback and go out and do stuff with his family and all this sort of stuff. Like if he wasn't like Ralph Lauren,
Mhm.
right, he'd still just be this sharp dressing older guy
Mhm.
that loved to hang out with his family. And I love that about the documentary.
Yeah. Um, Going back again to kind of this team attitude, family attitude that he had. Um, what do you think it says about it? Does this early on in the documentary where it points out that he was never trained in design, fashion, sewing, whatever. He just kind of had this eye for stuff. For stuff.
Mhm.
Um, do you read into that at all from the standpoint of can you have one specific skill, and if you get the right people around you with the other skills, you can go to the moon, I guess.
Yes, I mean, I do. I definitely read into that. I think for me, I've always said that I've wanted to just create, right? I don't
Mm,
want to be. I don't want to have 5 or 6 jobs, even though that's how you start out.
yeah.
But like, for instance, with Candid, when I first started out, I was doing the programming, I was doing the marketing, I was doing the advertising, I was doing all these different things, right? But the thing
Mhm.
that got me the most is on the day of the event. I used to get so upset about this, but like I'll be marketing, 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 putting stuff out, inviting people, selling tickets, da da da. Da.
Mhm.
But on the day of the event, people will always call me and be like, "Yo, man, how much your tickets again? What time does your show start? Where is it at again? Are you serving food or are you not serving food?
Oh
What
man.
movie are you showing again?" And I'd be like, "What?" So I have an event.
Yeah.
I got all of my stuff. Or this is the thing right here. This is the thing right here that would really take me down. Yeah, so man, I didn't receive a call or a text from you inviting me, man. So I didn't know if you wanted me to come. True story. True story.
Like, why
Okay.
would I not? Like, I used to.
I
I
cannot make this up. I'm for real. Like, what? What ended up happening, and the reason I brought that up is because it would be so irritating to me because you're trying to get into like show mode, you're trying to, get to this, mode where you're trying to host people, so on and so forth. So it wasn't until I hired a girl, her name is Paris Williford, um, and she became my day of coordinator, right, for
mm,
event coordinator. And when I tell you, she was like the most awesome person. And when I knew that when she started, it was like an immediate weight lifted off my shoulders because those calls weren't coming to me anymore. They were
yeah.
coming to her.
Yeah.
And so I was able to remove a lot of things on the day of the event to her. And it was just so much peace that I had to be able to just, obviously I had to set up an event and, talk to people, get stuff together.
Hmm.
But it was so much peace, like because I had vendors at these events, I had my, coordinating with the caterer, so all of these different things, right? But those calls and those times that they needed to be there, because again, time is a thing. Like when you setting up an event, you don't think that 4 hours before an event is a short period of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you got call, your mom is calling, and then you got your friends calling, and you got to go over here and do this last couple of errands and all these different things. It really is a short window of time.
Yeah.
But she took that time back from me so that I just had time to breathe for a second, get myself together, and walk into an event. So that is the power of having a team.
That's awesome. Shout out to Paris if she's listening.
Yes.
That's great. Well, man, I can't thank you enough for joining me to talk about this movie. A, to recommend it, so I could watch it. But B, just to come on the podcast and talk about it.
Thank
I
you for
really
having
appreciate it.
me.
Yeah, of
I
course.
appreciate this. Yeah.
Yeah. So when can we expect the next kickback?
So again, I'm working on some stuff right now with Crystal. So if you listen to this and you're in the Raleigh, Durham, Cary area, we will be just follow me on at Candid Graham, so CNDID Graham to get any updates on that. And then also too, you can catch Crystal stuff on Beats and Bars and all of her different platforms to catch one of our summer events. But a kickback for me specifically probably won't happen until later on in the fall, because I'm, just planning and doing a lot of different things. But if you want to have discussions about films and have discussions about whatever, I am on Clubhouse. You can find me at, Rashad Little, whatever have you. And I have a clubhouse called Candid Yams Kickback, where every Thursday we talk about a film. Last Thursday we talked about Coming to America.
Mm,
To
awesome. Sounds good.
Absolutely, man. Let's catch up after this, man, because I'd love to pick your brain a little bit more about what you do and how you do it and the things that you kind of want to accomplish. And I'm just that type of guy, man. Like
Yeah.
whenever I see people that are cool people that want to do different things, man, I either want to partner with them or I want to get them all the help that they need. I'm funny like that. So
Nah, man, I get it. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm around, man. Just reach out.
I definitely.
Very Ralph was a film I had zero expectations about going into it, and that's often best. For me and Rashad, it ended up being a refreshingly positive and inspiring documentary about the power of family, and family does not necessarily mean those related to you. Very Ralph is currently available on HBO Max. I can safely say that Rashad is a friend after our chat, and I think that's part of what he's going for with his screening events and open invitations to discuss anything and everything arts related. Hell, that's what this podcast is basically about too, so it worked out perfectly. Check out Rashad's events by following Candid Yams on Instagram and Shad L on Clubhouse. That's SHADL on Clubhouse. And if you happen to live in the Durham, North Carolina area, check out candidyamskickback.eventbrite.com for some of the events that Rashad has going on involving movies and arts and all that fun stuff. Thank you all so much for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with all of our episodes, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts to help spread the word about what we got going on here. If you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Twitter at FilmNutsPodcast or email hello@filmnutspodcast.com. Okay, that's it for today. Here's a little inspiration from Ralph himself to send us home.
You can be inspired by people over the years, but you can't be a copy. In order to last in your career, you have to be an original. And so for me, it was always originality with influences that I've lived with. I don't think I am the great creator of the newest things in life, but I don't think that's what the world is about. And that's what I believe.